All right, good evening. Salute. I see we got one person in the chat right now. I appreciate you for tuning in into the Alligator Pit. Um, Welcome to all the people that may see this live and also the people that's going to see it when it's a pre-recorded video. We appreciate you and thank you for tuning in. We're in the deep end of the dangerous and deadly Alligator Pit once again for another classic tonight. So just to make sure that our audio and stuff is good, whoever may be in the comment section right now, please put audio good if you can hear my voice right now, just to make sure. So what we'll do is give a little bit of time to get some feedback from the people in the audience to make sure they can hear us and the audio is good on their end. And when we have at least one comment, we'll proceed forward. I do my basic introduction and then I'll let, the co-host do his and we will move forward in the video. And once again, to anybody out there right now that can hear my voice, we appreciate having you here. And right now, we're just waiting for some people to let us know that they can hear us in the comment section with the audio. Okay, we see I got one brother. He gave us a salute. He said, major salute from your brother in LA. Brother left us a comment a little bit, not too long ago. So we at least got some people popping in, tuning in to the live stream. See, we just had 5 people show up. So hopefully this audio is sounding good. But before we get started, salute to the boy Houdini. You can shout out to people real quick, say whatever is briefly on your mind.
What's going on, everybody? Oh, shit. I ain't trying to actually show myself. Hold on. A little bit of a technical difficulty here.
It's all right.
But fuck it. Shit, what's going on? I guess y'all gonna see me in the worst form and everything, but once again, it's your boy Houdini Crosswire back. Just able to just come back and give a little bit of my intake on, my boy Blackbeard Mirage's new book that he got coming out with, certain subjects that we've discussed over the years, correlating to stuff that that's happened in the history of time and things that we see that's going on in today, and just back here to get my my intake on some more stuff that's correlating to what my boy been talking about in his book.
Right. So you wanna maybe come out and come back in so you can get the camera thing like you want, or you straight?
Shit, yeah, let's just run it.
Oh, okay, cool. So shit, what we're gonna do then is like you said, the people are gonna pop in, but I'll just do my basic introduction and we'll move forward in the video. So as the brother said, the point of these videos and these live streams right now is to do some open-ended discussions on the topics, themes, subjects, and phenomenon that readers will experience in the new book that we've just released called Scorperotika, which is a dark romance about America's history of war, sex, shekels, and death, chaos, and destruction. So a lot of the things that we see going on in the United States today, the tall, fancy buildings, the land of milk and honey. A lot of people from other countries want to come here, and it's their greatest destination. But the history, how it became this place, has been swept under the rug. So what we're doing over here with the Red Stick family is just putting out different literature and different productions to make talking about history and subjects that you may have learned in school, and that was education. And maybe it was a little bit boring, but over here we putting some, entertainment twist to it. So it's a dark romance. And also for readers, readers' discretion is advised. It has some very graphic scenes, and graphic wordplay, but that's just a little background on the book. And also, if you want to get the book, you see the instructions on the screen right now. You can just email me at redstickmirage7@gmail.com to purchase the book Scorperotika. You'll leave me your name and mailing information in the email. And after I correspond with you, I'll ship it out on my own. So that's the process on receiving the book. You can just hit me up in the email, and the instructions are on the screen right now. But going back to, one of the key themes in the books, one of the key themes is dealing with chaos and confusion and how, you're able to make a lot of money off of that. And it made me think earlier when I was just contemplating on the perpetual warfare that this country has been experiencing the last 250 years, because this is the so-called anniversary this year dealing with that. But just the perpetual warfare, dealing with all the Indian wars dating back to 1492, with those early Spanish, Dutch, and French crusaders who came into the Americas, South, Central, and North America. And they may have come to do certain business dealings, but some of them also were greedy, and they wanted to take the land and extract all the resources from it and use the human energy of the people on the land and put them in perpetual servitude. And that created the situation that we know of as domestic slavery of the American Indian and their whole culture being wiped out. But what I want to do before we move forward is just get the brother Crosswire's, brief overview of just the concept of war, chaos, and confusion being used to make a lot of money. Like when we look at these gas prices, even for example, today, and even the food costs, like when we go to the grocery store, that Strait of Hormuz over in southern Iran, which is a very key point for a lot of oil and other resources to transport to get to the far west and the far east. So there are a lot of people depending on that oil, countries like Japan, China, for example. So when this strait is closed, it's messing up a lot of countries' money. And then on the individual level, the gas prices go up for the people. I know right now in the state of Georgia, they're much higher than they usually are. So I could guarantee in states like California and New York, the gas prices are going crazy. So, just give us real quick, your thoughts on that.
Yeah, it's exactly like you said. I mean, and honestly, it's been times, where stuff is just going up just because, they wanted it to go up. But definitely during wars, stuff it's always been something that's, kind of like gouged. And as far as back as I could think, honestly, I mean, of course, you look at the taxation of sugar and tea and tobacco during the revolution during that time, and how a lot of that was being taxed because, of course, during that time, people were transporting it and it was war, so it was gonna be conflicts, not involving trade and stuff to be imported. So I think that's one of the main reasons why prices have to go up because if stuff is going from one country to another during a time like that, then it's almost like piracy. I would think that could be created when you think,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, well,
and
yeah.
I don't know of course exactly what's going on today, but I know that was going on in the ancient times during war because that's how people were able to kind of really retain resources.
Right. Right. So what we're gonna do now, for the rest of this video is, as I say, we looking into war, chaos, and confusion being used to make a lot of money, to make a lot of shekels. And to some people, this may seem to be an amoral strategy to come up. It may seem to be unethical or evil, but these international rulers have a gritty way of thinking, and they play gritty games for gold, and they have a pharaonic mentality. They have hubris. The way they think, it's a high level of arrogance. So we're going to examine a video where um it's rather interesting to say, and we'll pause the video. I'll ask the co-host some questions, to get his thoughts on what we're dealing with here. But we're gonna go into the mind of Crosswire versus Finkelstein, dealing with the greatest game to make some shekels. So at this time, I'll share my screen and bring the video up, and we'll go forward.
I'd like to welcome you to John 8:44. I'm James Wickstrom, a teacher of Yahweh. Come and tell.
Can you hear the audio good?
Yeah, it's good. It's just a little loud though.
All right, wait a minute, let me turn it down.
Live on the Turner Radio Network.
Yeah, that's fine.
From 9 to
Sound
10
better.
p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Filling in for Pastor Bob, who covered for me last week. We're going to have a very, very interesting program tonight. I'm sure you're going to find it that way. I have a guest by the name of Rabbi A.B. Finkelstein. He's off the east coast of the United States, who's going to be joining me tonight. And we're going to be talking about authenticity of things in the world. Rabbi A.B. Finkelstein, as I said, a rabbi off the east coast of the United States. Are you there with me tonight?
Shalom, I am here.
Say, listen, I'm filling in here for Pastor Bob tonight, and I know we've never met, but I do have some very interesting questions for you. I think questions that I want to give you the opportunity to answer to, because there's a lot of rumors and conjecture that's taking place across this country relating to the Jewish population, okay?
Okay.
Now, you see, as being off the synagogue and a teacher of the Jewish race, because you are a race, aren't you?
Well, some say we're a race, some say we're a religion.
Yeah, well, what do you say?
We're a little of each.
I can imagine, yeah. Now, I want to get into some hard topic here right away here. You know, you're a very pronounced person among your own people, and of course you know, you're very aware that I don't like you or your race, okay? I'm sure you're aware of this, right?
That's your problem.
You see, there's a big topic that's going around on this 6 million Holocaust that took place during World War II of the Jews at Buchenwald, Auschwitz, and different places. A lot of information has come out here, Rabbi Finkelstein, that it's all myth and it's all conjecture. Could I have your view on this?
Well, everybody knows that the Jews never told a lie in the history of the world. However, whether it's 6 million or 600,000 or 60,000, it's just a number.
Oh, it's just a number, but the thing that I want to get to you at is that, you know, the 1934 World Encyclopedia stated that there was only 3.5 million Jews in all of Europe. How did 3.5 million Jews populate themselves to 6 million? This is the question I'd like answered.
Well, it's certainly a good question, there's no doubt about it. But the number, you know, numbers, what can I say about numbers? The important thing is that Jews have always been persecuted all throughout the history of the world forever and still are.
Well, the reason they're persecuted is because they're thieves, liars, and murderers, just like it's stated in the book of John 8:44. Yet
Bible stuff.
You're a lying Jew is what you are. You're a lying Jew.
You could say that, but even when we lie, we tell the truth.
So, any comments and thoughts thus far? What are your thoughts on the energy between these two?
Well, you know, it just goes back to what we say. You could really tell from the energy that, you know, this guy's in a position where he kind of knows that, you know, they're ruling, you know, they're winning this war, you know, that this radical Christian is trying to get him to, you know, really convince him on his religion of and his beliefs of. And he knows that he's losing the war, you know, based on the way that, you know, this system is set up. I mean, this is how Finkelstein is feeling. And really, you know, whether these people hear it or not, it's really nothing that they could even do about it, because they all have to be stuck. They all have to get up and work tomorrow. They all, you know, are going to be entertained by the just no different than the Roman Colosseum he had back in the, you know, the 300 AD era, and, you know, sports or whatever that they have now. They're going to be entertained by that. They're going to go to the restaurants that I want them to go to. So, I mean, he sounds like, you know, like his plan is working, honestly. And you know, somebody's just frustrated and trying to climb their way out the barrel. And it's almost humorous to him.
Can you hear the arrogance in his voice?
Yeah, I mean, that's why you hear him so calm. But I mean, of course, we know that, you know, later on it's going to become more arrogant.
Right. I see we got a brother in the comment section. Salute to Vale Quest. He said, quote, "Even when we lie, we tell the truth," end quote. meaning they have the power to make their fables believe or manifest in reality. And that's true. I can remember, this may have been a month or two ago, but I was doing some research and looking through some stuff, and it was either an old CBS or an old CNN interview, but it was this elder gentleman, and he had been going on this crusade about the Holocaust for like 10 years, and saying that, you know, he had been through it and all this stuff, but it came out that he actually was lying, and his own children even were trying to get him to stop doing it for years. But you know, he was doing it to get status, prestige, income, interview opportunities, etc. But during the interview, when they were asking him, like, you know, well, why did you lie? He said, well, you know, in my imagination, it was real.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, it had been so many people. It was so many people that actually wrote and denied that Holocaust thing that, you know, in the academics field, they just kind of crucified him, honestly. It's a guy named David Irvin that wrote a whole book on it. And his whole career, he spent, you know, again, showing like all these, you know, the same stuff, how the numbers didn't match and all these court cases and, you know, just a lot of stuff that they, you know, that they just pretty much lied on. And yeah, they just pretty much said, I mean, that's what they do, as we know, like, you know, they're going to create like, you know, a sacrificial lamb, you know, out of anybody that's defying their mission. So, you know, if you're somebody that's saying that whole thing didn't exist, then, you know, you're going to be like the Jesus Christ.
And also for people that may be familiar with, you know, Kabbalistic magic, black magic, psychological manipulation, psychological warfare, covert subconscious warfare, deception, then you will know that a lot of the people from this ethnic, quote unquote, religious background, they are very, very deep into those magical systems. So this is also how they can make their fables believed and manifest them in reality. And like we said on the video yesterday, these people use the human, organic, natural energy of us, our conscious power, and they get us to focus and pay attention to things that really aren't real, but it allows them to get benefit. So they create this matrix for us to put our power and real energy into, and it gets activated from us, but we actually are the reality. Even such as the paper dollar or the fiat currency, it's the human being behind it that's backing it with the labor and the work and the real energy. That's what's actually real. That's the real wealth. The actual money itself has no wealth.
They don't.
But we're gonna continue.
You know, this is very ironic because, you know, I never thought that I would get anyone that had the nerve to join me on a broadcast like this live. And you know, I just got off a program with a retired colonel, a very highly decorated colonel, on my last broadcast, my original broadcast here, Rabbi Finkelstein. And we got into the banking aspect of the money in this country. Now, everybody, a lot of people who have studied banking and economics, they know that the Federal Reserve Banking Corporation is a private Jewish bank. Is this true?
Well, yes and no.
Well, what part is yes?
Well, it's a banking institution, that's for sure.
You see, the thing that I don't like about this is that the Jews never knew what hard work was, and they never had. And besides, you know, this is the nice part about it. You Jews are just Christ murderers anyway.
Well, that's true. We did murder him, but he was Jewish too.
Oh, no, he was Almighty Yahweh, God in the flesh body. That's the problem you got.
Well, we tell all the Goyim that they worship a Jew and they believe it, so what's the difference?
And now that you brought up the...
So what's your comment on that statement he just made when
well,
it looks
you
like
know,
this Christian,
because it go back to what we said, like, you know, if he could get this same, you know, population and herd of people, you know, in one country to worry about, you know, their survival, so they're going to go to this job. You know, now that, you know, you have your survival means, now you have to have some sort of purpose in life. So now he comes with his religion, and you know, he creates, like you said, this narrative, and he creates these magical characters, and, you know, and it all correlates to what, again, he feels like his suffering was. And you know, and it relates to what it relates to, of course, you know, what he wants everybody to believe, and, you know, that's how we get with Jesus, you know, and all this other stuff. So you know, that whole thing was just, again, like, it was just created again for somebody to feel like this is my reason for living. This is the reason why I should get up, go to work every day, you know, go home, go to church on Sunday. Like, it creates up a sense of purpose. So as long as it has that, then a whole nation will follow that, you know.
Yeah. What about the idea that you know that the so-called Jew created the Christian story of Jesus Christ for the Gentile or non-Jewish
Yeah.
people? Does that sound
That's
plausible to you?
Yeah, it really does. It really does. Because I mean, you know, it goes back to what we said. Somebody has to be sacrificed. So in this story, you know, if it's believed that this character, you know, was it was okay that he gave this, you know, his sins up and everything. He gave up everything he saw that, you know, people in the world did for everybody later on to live better, then that would make the current day believer believe that, you know, by me sacrificing and doing all this other stuff in society that I deem as, you know, good values and, you know, and a good standard of living, even though it's really destroying me, that's going to get me into some sort of like eternal paradise. This, you know, so I think that was the whole sense of him creating that narrative, because other than that, you wouldn't really have no purpose of living in this shit. It'd probably be more suicides, you know, without religion or without this idea of you know, getting something out of that. So
All right.
he don't need that, obviously. He needs people here working.
Do you believe in Jesus Christ?
And like, as far as like that, it was a person that was here.
Yeah, like the way that this pastor, I guess the way he just said it.
Yeah, I think that this guy that he's talking about, you know, you know, it sounds like, you know, this angel, you know, that's floating towards you, you know, getting ready to lift you from all your problems, you know, no matter what negligence you do, like this, you know, this guy's just gonna clear all that away. And that's the kind of Jesus I'm thinking that he's talking about, like somebody that, you know, he could just restore everything, no matter how bad you do. He just gonna make everything better. And he looked like, and I would assume this same Jesus looks like this guy on the screen. So
right. I'm about to go play it.
Yeah.
The Goyim, let's talk about that. In other words, the Goyim, correct me if I'm wrong, I know you will. Rabbi Finkelstein, a Goyim is any person who isn't a Jew. A Goyim is classified as cattle or an animal. Is this correct?
Well, they are cattle because we're the chosen people.
Well, yeah, you're chosen for fertilizer. That's what you're chosen for. You know, this is what the Book of Enoch, the patriarch.
So that term, Goyim, are you familiar with that?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Could you give the people a little bit of a background on what that means?
Well, from when honestly, when I first heard the term, I thought it was always something similar to like being a proletariat, just somebody who came with, like, you know, some kind of working class poor. But I thought it was more of like a social term when I first heard it. But then when I started like correlating it to you know, I noticed that it was mainly like, you know, these Jewish people that were saying it. You don't really hear other cultures and nations use that term as much. So, you know, as time was kind of moving on and I started, you know, correlating it to them, and I started kind of wondering like, well, you know, why do they classify as that? Obviously, because like we said, if they view everybody as, you know, not them, and they really want to create and manifest a world where it's nothing but, you know, Jews, that's their ideal paradise. And, you know, so anything or any being obviously that's here that's, I guess, considered a human being like them, you know, I mean, because anything, you know, outside of them really is considered almost just an animal. So they feel like, you know, if it's something outside of them, then and it's, I guess, considered a human, then the most lowest and despicable term that they could come up with, you know, was that term. And it's just, you know, of course, described as, you know, something that is pushing the agenda along, the engine.
Well, let me ask you this real quick before we move on. That term Goyim, does it have the same type of energy like when people try to call so-called Black Americans the N-word?
Nah, I feel it. Like I say, I feel it to be more of like a religious text than the cultural and social. It
No, yeah,
feels
you
more religious to me.
no, you're right, because the original term is Gentile, and in the Bible, all it means is just somebody that's not a Semitic Israelite. So you're right, it is
Right.
more from the Bible and biblical versus something like cultural.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna move forward.
Even Yahweh in a flesh body said that all of you Jews, the descendants of Cain, are going to perish for the evil that you have done in this world. You are the destroyers and the incineraries of the world, are you not?
I'll agree with that.
But you see, the thing that really bothers me, and not bothers me to the extent of losing sleep over people like you, is that all wars have been created by Jewry. They've been all set up to gain, as a monetary gain. Wouldn't you agree?
It's the greatest game in the world to make some shekels.
Now, let me ask you this. You know, there's so much things being talked about with George Bush in the White House. Let me have your opinion, first of all, about George Bush in the White House.
He's a good goyim.
Yeah, well, he's a good goyim. Yeah, good for.
So my next question is, he just asked Mr. Finkelstein about, about George Bush and George Bush being obedient to either his donors or whomever his shadow partners are or shadow overlords, and him being a good goy by following orders.
Right.
Do you think that today, because mind you, this interview, and more than likely when this was going on, was during the early 2000s, dealing with the kickoff of 9/11 and stuff like that. So looking today with Donald Trump, is Donald Trump a good goyim?
Nah, I think he's kind of a rebellious goyim. Like he wants to kind of do his own thing, but he knows because of what he's under, he can't do that. So he has to kind of abide by what they tell him. But he's kind of, I think he's kind of in between. Honestly, he's trying to be not be a good goy, but at the same time he's trying to do what he wants.
Interesting.
But I wouldn't say he's a full 100% good goy like a like a George Bush or Ronald Reagan or what's the guy Eisenhower. These were the prime classic goys in American history. I wouldn't put Donald Trump up there with them.
All right, let's keep on going.
Boy, he takes his orders from Ariel over there, and he tells him what to do, and he does it like a good goyim.
Would you agree that when the Balfour Declaration was signed in England and the Jews were taken to Palestine, the land of Palestine, would you agree or disagree that there's actually more killing and there's been as much slaughter in Palestine by the Jews slaughtering and killing the Palestinians as there are of the Iraqi people being butchered in the last 12 years?
Well, who counts? But once in a while, you got to thin out the herd. When you own the herd, you got to thin out the herd.
I see. That's the philosophy of making money and staying alive and staying ahead. Is this right? Now, I'd like to.
You take that Iraq business over there. We got the white goyim fighting the Arab goyim, and they're killing each other, and we're making a lot of money, and we get the oil, and we get the interest. The most important thing is the interest on all the shekels that we loan both sides.
You mean usury?
That's right. You call it usually.
Now, there's a book out that you.
So my next question to you is this: in the Old Testament, in the Bible, when the Israelite people were leaving out of captivity in Egypt, and they were going to create their own civilization, their leadership created some laws and principles and statutes to organize the people so they could handle business the right way. And one of them was you couldn't practice usury, meaning that you couldn't loan somebody that was an Israelite and then charge interest or put debt on top of it. So what's your commentary on the idea of usury and charging people interest on loans, and that being forbidden to do that to people of your own race, but you can do it to other people?
Oh yeah, that's because again, it's if they want to create this world, where it's this perfect harmony, and and it's this, I guess where they getting up every day and eating bagels and cottage cheese and and fucking and doing what they do every single day, drinking excrement and God knows what 7 days a week. Like until they can have that idea of a perfect world, in reality where they're doing that, then yeah, anything outside of that exists, I mean, yeah, obviously, we still got to survive, but that don't mean that yeah, you got to be equal. So yeah, you're gonna be paying interest, because we got to give you a loan because you got to have somewhere to live and eat and and survive basically so you can continue working. So yeah, I mean, you still got to be treated like someone as a human, but not completely as a human being like you should, like them. So yeah, we'll give you a loan and put 30% interest on give you a car loan, 10% interest or whatever, home loan, 40-50 year mortgage. So, you know, still putting you in slavery. So it's fulfilling their objective.
And I remember, once before mentioning this in the video, I believe the proper term is heter iska or ista heter, but basically there is a terminology that they use where if you can prove your ethnicity that they're claiming their ancestry, that you can get a loan for free. So imagine going to a financier or a bank, whereas when regular people go in there, you got to have a credit score, you got to have bank summaries, you got to show a history and all this other financial stuff. Whereas another group of people, when they come in, they're not coming with any of that. They may just be coming with a birth certificate to prove maternal and paternal ancestry, and they're getting a loan with no interest applied. So, yeah, I think it's called Heter Iska, if I remember correctly. But let's continue.
Read Rabbi Finkelstein called the Talmud. Now, the Talmud refers to Christ as his mother was a whore, and he was a bastardized son of a Roman soldier. Is this what's being taught in the synagogues?
Well, every good Jew knows that.
But you see, the reason that I wanted to ask you this is that, you just said a little while ago that he was a Jew. And now you say every Jew knows that he was the son of a Roman soldier and that his mother was a prostitute.
Well, that was a long time ago. Who knows what was said back then?
Yeah, I guess that's right. That's absolutely right. We're having a real bad problem in our country right now. There's a lot of outsourcing of jobs and deindustrialization of this country. The 7 Jew banking families that took over control of the money in America in 1913 was the Rothschilds of London, Israel Schiff of Italy, Kuhn&Loeb of Germany, the Warburgs of Hamburg, Lehman Brothers of New York, Goldman Sachs of New York, and the Rockefellers of New York. A lot of people, they don't realize and know that these 7 Jewish families actually control all the money and have controlled the money in this country since 1913. I know you're aware of this.
Of course.
Now, in doing so, I mean, that makes a pretty big purse, doesn't it?
Listen, the goyim are the schleppers. They do all the work. That's what they want to do. They want to work. They always want jobs, so we give them jobs to work. The Jews don't work.
No, Jews don't work, and you're absolutely true. I want to get back to this Holocaust, and I want to get back to the Holocaust survivors. It's to the point here, Rabbi Finkelstein, where there's more Holocaust survivors getting money, getting payments, financial payments, than there were Holocaust people who died, allegedly among the Jews. Where did all these people come from?
Well, again, they have the evidence, they have the proof that they were there in the Holocaust, and so they're entitled to some money.
So, in other words, you Jews say 6 million were killed in the concentration camps, and yet there's almost 6 million that are still receiving funds from Germany and other funding, and that's 12 million. Now, how does 12 million come out of 3 million?
Listen, again, the numbers, you know, you keep arguing about the numbers. The bottom line is that the Jews are entitled because we've been persecuted for thousands and thousands and thousands of years, and so we're entitled, even 100 years from.
So what do you think about that statement? And also, do you think that these are actually the people that the Bible is talking about?
Of course not. Of course not. We already know how they look. I mean, he don't even look like he's his race has been persecuted for that. You don't even see no type of trauma or stress or nothing on him. So how would his race have even been through that? He don't even look like his race has been here for longer than really 600 years. So nah, it's this. Of course, we know that's not true. But as far as what I think about that, yeah, that's just I think after the World War II thing, when they I mean, God knows what that whole reason of that really was, because I do know that it was a lot of gold, and it was a lot of resources they were basically distributing and expanding land, and it's expanding this same religious thing from back then. Like, it was mainly to expand that, no different than it was in World War I. But yeah, like during that time, as far as like them using that to expand their wealth, I mean, obviously, that's how they inflated it, because I mean, 30 years later, the gold wasn't used anymore. It's like, I guess, bad currency. So yeah, maybe that war was just for them to just inflate their wealth all over the world to create this more world international bank system.
Right. Yeah. All right, let's continue.
Now, there'll be people collecting money on the Holocaust because of that lousy boy Hitler over there. He was a bad boy.
Now, let me ask you a question about this, because this is very important. We've gotten into a lot of very interesting information. We're going to get into more here in the very near future, but Rabbi Finkelstein, this country, the United States of America, is in real deep trouble right now financially, and I kind of want to know what you're telling the other Jews in that in regards to, because I know Jews don't have any loyalty to nothing but gold and silver, especially gold. What are the synagogues teaching the Jews in America today as to the course of where this country is heading?
Well, it's like this. America, it served its purpose for us for a while. We made a lot of shekels here. We made a lot of interest off the shekels. But we can get cheaper labor in China. We can get cheaper labor in India. Why should we pay the white race goyim here in America any money when we can make a better deal over there? It's all about shekels.
I want to get into that about.
So based on some of the stuff going on in this country right now, does it seem like the people in Capitol Hill, the Democrats, the Republicans, these politicians, the corporations, everything that's over here in domestic, that they were just used and abused by international interest, and now they're done with it and moving on to something else?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, like we would say probably since I would go on to say since yeah, like I said, when the gold thing went south, that's probably when they started to realize, like, yeah, like this American thing ain't it's profitable like that. So we need to create some type of like world currency, or or some unified system now, because trying to back it by this American thing, yeah, it didn't go properly as planned.
We'll continue.
Shekels and interest and everything, and this is very interesting that you bring it up, because I noticed that there's a lot of investment by Jewish financiers into Asia, most parts of Asia. Now, I also know that Jewry is an Asiatic race. Is this correct?
Well, we're really all over the world, but yeah, I guess you could say we started in Asia.
Yes, that's right. Now, the Hebrews did not start there, and the Israelites didn't start there. You really have no bearing to be in the Hebrews or the Israelites. You are not the dispersed nations, plural, of the tribes of Jacob, who were surnamed Israel. Actually, the con game that you have brought on to this country and the world for many years, and it's been a good con. It's been a good con game. Is that you're allegedly God's chosen people?
We are God's chosen people. It's just that most Jews don't like to admit it, but our God is Lucifer.
Your God is gold.
Well, that's what we like, is lots of gold, lots of shekels, some American Express cards. You know, we like to spend, we like to have a good time. We let the Goyim do the work, and we have a party.
Oh, in other words, free foreign aid, free housing, free food, and you just let the other races be your Goyim cattle slaves. Is this correct?
That's what they want, so we let them be that.
And this is what's coming and planned in this country too, isn't it? The United States.
Well, this country here, we're going to brown this country up. We're bringing all the Mexicans and all the Hispanics across the border. They're interbreeding, especially with a lot of the white women, the Shekels as we call them, and they're interbreeding with them. Pretty soon there won't be a white race, so they'll be all brown.
And talking about race, you are a race, Rabbi Finkelstein, but you are a Heinz 57 mongrel race of Asiatic blood. Is this correct?
Well, there's Jews everywhere in the world. We interbreed with all the good-looking women in every country we go into. All the good-looking women, all they care about is we buy them a few diamonds, not that they're worth anything. We mark that industry up real big. If the truth be known, we have so many diamonds that if we ever turn loose the diamonds we have, you can buy them for the same price as a dozen roses. But the women, they like the diamonds. They like the fillets. So we give them the diamonds and the fillets, and we make an appointment with them, and we have sex with them, and sometimes we marry them. It doesn't matter, because when we want a divorce, we just go to one of our fellow Jew judges and get the divorce. We have a Jew lawyer. She's going to hire a Jew lawyer. Yeah, she's not going to make any shekels, but she can try.
Let me ask you this. This is very interesting. This war in Iraq that took place after the alleged towers of 2001, September 11, 2001, this alleged war, it got very interesting. There were really no Jews in them towers. Can you explain that?
Well, spiritually, there were a lot of Jews in the towers. A lot of Jews died in those towers, spiritually.
Oh, I see. Well, the 3,000 Jews were not at work that day in those towers. That just gave a lot of people have the impression that the Jewish population out there in New York, was aware that something was going to happen, and they didn't show up for work that day.
Yeah, we got a call from the Kahilla that Ariel and some of the boys in the Mossad, they got together and they wired up the buildings and they took them down. It was going to be a hard thing to take them down anyway, because we wanted to build some new structures, and the buildings were getting old, and it was time to bring them down. This way, we make some shekels by destroying the building. Old Silverman, who's a good friend of mine there, Larry, he got a two-for. He got a 2-for-1 there, and he doubled the insurance magically just 3 months before it happened, and then he got a 2-for hit on it, so he made like 4 times his money. I should have been in on the deal. He asked me, but I said, I don't know, let me think about it. It took a little too long for me to think about it, and he pulled the plug. He pulled it, as they say, and so the buildings come down. But at least I got in on the market, and I was short American Airlines, I was short United Airlines, I was short Lloyd's of London Insurance Company because they took a big hit. Allianz Insurance Company, I was short them. So I made a few shekels.
Well, let me ask you this,
So what's your comments on that? Just going back to that whole theme of the whole book, dealing with war, chaos, and confusion, that being the greatest game to make some shekels, and the chaos and confusion that it sounds like this guy made off of 9/11.
Yeah, sound like this guy Silverstein created history, because he did it with the World Trade Center and 9/11. So he did it twice. So This guy, yeah, he was the damn creator of the conflict in Iraq. Technically. And you know he done made 12. If he made what 2 times in 1993 with the World Trade Center, and then 4 times with the 9/11 thing, that you know he made 12 times over the last 20 years in Iraq. So yeah, these people, that's their game. And obviously, you know, when it's a war, you know, it's gonna be a lot of casualties, and it's gonna be a lot of trade, and you know, and commodities that they have to be, you know, distributed and exported and stuff. So yeah, that's more insurance payments, and this is just, yeah, that's
And
just
then
more money.
also,
So
like he was saying, he was selling a lot of his investments before the public found out what's going wrong, and then people, you know, sell theirs and they lose value. So he made his money
yeah,
by selling early, you know.
yeah,
So
exactly.
interesting.
Yeah,
There's a lot of speculation here. You know, I know that the Jews are thieves and liars of any moral society. Now, I want to thank you for coming on tonight and talking to me, because I also know that there's no conscience among Jewry. And Rabbi Finkelstein, it doesn't matter what I say to you, it's going to bounce off you like water off a duck's back, right?
Well, Jews always feel guilt. We've always felt the guilt. We have a conscience.
The only conscience you have is when you can't steal all the money from anyone or any country.
Well, you're hitting a little close to home, but you're correct.
Now, on a lot of food labels, there's a U and a K. And this U and K on all food labels, for example, that are sold in supermarkets, etc., is this a Jewish tax that is paid to, like, rabbis like you all over the United States? Is that another con job at the expense of the goyim, the masses who purchase the product?
Well, I didn't get in on that one, but yeah, it's a lot of other rabbi groups. They tax the food, and you could call it a tax. You know, you're entitled to make money where you can make money. If nobody stops you, you make the money. And but you know, the goyim, I mean, they're the cattle. The white race out there, they're the goyim, they're the cattle. And so if we want to make money off of feeding our cattle, who's to say that that's wrong?
Well, let me ask you, what's the greatest
Pause it
feature
there.
of the people that you have in your syndicate?
It's interesting that he brought up the white race, and he's not. I mean, he brought up the fact that how he's bringing in the Mexicans to interbreed with the white race and bleach them out. He's not really talking about any other ethnicities like that. Why is he like so hard on this white man?
Why do you think that is? Because and before you make your comment, so just for the viewers out there, just like there are melanated people from all continents and all cultures and all nations, we may share ethnic features, we may share certain phenotypes, but culturally and geographically, we're different. So just like in the Bible, for example, the original Israelites were Shemitic people, so they were brown-skinned, so-called black people, but you also had Hamitic people who were more like what we would call Africans, and they came in various shades of brown. So they were both indigenous people of color, but they were from different backgrounds ethnically. And it's the same with Caucasian people. So you have Caucasian people from, you know, so-called Western Europe that we're used to seeing, white Anglo-Saxon Protestants, like your average everyday United States citizen. But then you have Caucasian people like this gentleman, Mr. Finkelstein, who, you know, even though all their ancestry comes from various parts of Central Asia, but you had different Caucasian tribes that left and went on their own journeys, and they started to include themselves in different religions, different cultures, etc. So the Caucasian Jewish group is not the same as that Caucasian white Anglo-Saxon Protestant Christian group of like Western Europe. So why do you think that the Caucasian Jew looks at the Caucasian Christian as his goyim worker?
I really do think that because I mean, ethnically, that's probably what his role has been, you know, overseas and then probably here in the Americans too. And since the Jew probably, you know, or at least, you know, this form of, you know, Jew was around, during those times and probably saw, what was going on. That may have been what he always has known his role to be. So now that same I guess what you call Americanized or Caucasian man in society today, that would be like the person that he would use. I would think as like the cat's paw, to spread certain ideas or yeah, because I mean, really, they believe in the same factions as the Jew. It's just a different way, honestly, because it's not really like they care about the Jesus thing, but they need obviously for the Caucasian to believe in all this stuff in order for him to to continue being a goy. So I think it's almost like a love and hate relationship, honestly, because it's like he hates him, because he's doesn't like the fact that this Caucasian God wants his own power, but he does love him because I think that he feels like he's more intelligent than him, so he could manipulate him and it spread his beliefs and get him to buy into his ideologies. So because he does that, then he's able to spread the Jews' agenda. So it's kind of like a love and hate relationship, honestly.
Interesting. And before we move forward to the Caucasian Jew, whether he be of Ashkenazi, Eastern European German, or the so-called Sephardim when he was in Iberian Peninsula, so-called Spain or Portugal, but he learned his culture, ways, and religion from the melanated Israelite of Europe, Semitic man, Semitic woman. And when those people started to be persecuted through the Inquisition, the Reconquista, the wars in England with Oliver Cromwell and stuff like that, when a lot of these melanated Iberian, Moorish, original Israelite, Judean people were being kicked out, a lot of the Caucasian, Jewish, amalgamated people, they were being kicked out too. So as we were saying, these Caucasian people of Western Europe, Christian background, this was some of the beef in the conflict between them two. Because as I saw in the comment, we did have somebody mention what happened in Rome. And when we talk about Rome, we're also talking about, the spillover into Germania, Britain, and other parts of Europe after the Roman Empire fell and Christendom began to take over. But let's continue.
It's Gog, Rabbi Finkelstein. What is the greatest fear that the Jews in mass are facing on the East Coast?
Well, the worst thing is if we hang around. Our old buddy up there in the Federal Reserve, Allen, he's going to pull the plug on this U.S. dollar. And we want to make sure that we're into Swiss francs or into euros or Japanese yen or something before that happens. We'll get the call from the Kahilla. We're liquidating now, little by little. A couple of other goyim that they're good, bought and paid for Chavez goy. The Bill Gates fella from the computer place, and the Warren Buffett. Both of them, they got out of U.S. dollars about a year ago or so. We told them, to liquidate and, but we're still hanging on there. So we made a little extra interest since they were out of the market. They got a lot of shekels themselves.
I see where you Jews have finally taken over the National Rifle Association. A Jewess by the name of Sandra Froman is now president of the National Rifle Association.
Well, yeah, but we took over the NRA a long time ago. Charlton Heston, it's not known so much, but yeah, he's a nice Jewish boy. We let him play Moses in the movies back in the 50s. We took the NRA over long ago. All the organizations out there, the Jew controls it. Everybody knows that.
I've read in your Talmud where it says that if you're to have any opposition, you will control that opposition.
Well, of course, the smartest thing is to own both sides of every game.
But
that way you know the outcome. We own the Republicans, we own the Democrats. We got a lot of good Jewish boys in on both of them, and the rest of them are good bought and paid for Shabbos goy, and we throw a few shekels into their campaign contributions that we give them, and our Jewish lobby in Israel, and they, they take the money and they do what we want so that we can make some shekels. If nobody stops it, who's to say we shouldn't be doing it? Don't you wish you could do it? You're not doing it. We're doing it.
Yeah, but you're thieves and liars. You're all thieves and liars, just like it says in St. John 8:44. But you see, Rabbi Finkelstein, you don't own me, and you don't control me, and you don't control the racial identity movement in this country, who really understands to a varying degree of what you people are and what you've done.
Well, that's true. You're one of those goyim out there that we don't control. But I'll tell you a little something else. We all respect you for what you do, because at least you stand up for your race. The rest of them out there, they're all a bunch of cowards, all the white race goyim, all the men. The most of them these days, they carry purses and they wear earrings. They're no wonder the white girls come to us, all the Shekels.
Yeah.
So what's your comment on that? How basically he said that, he had respect for people that stood up for their ethnicity, men that could stand tall and not just fall for all the BS.
Yeah, because I mean, that's what he saw. He saw his original Jewish counterpart. That's what he saw them doing for thousands of years before that. He was counting their money and managing their resources and studying their practices and studying their norms. So I mean, he would have to have respect for that. Yeah, like I mean, he looking at it at the end of the day, like you ain't trying to do it depending on my resources. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of like, I guess, the bully respecting the punk for finally standing up for himself.
Interesting.
I had a conversation here not long ago with an individual, and I got into the feminist homosexual agenda in the United States, and I told them that actually the sexist homosexual agenda was actually created and funded by Jewry, by the Jews of the United States. Well, do you want to discuss on that?
Yeah, we got that going back in the early 1900s. The women's rights movement. We started off. See, when you're gonna have a game and you got a bigger goal, you can't go in like a Sherman tank going through something. You gotta start a little small. And so we said, hey, how about you get equal pay for equal work? And women have the right to vote. And everybody bought into that. And we started with the women because it's hard to get the men. The women are the weakest sex, as we know from that old Adam and Eve story of yours. But at any rate, we got the women going. And now look at all the women. Most all of them around the world, especially here in America, they got short hair. They got a schwarzer for a boyfriend. They got a lesbian lover. They're married by the time they're 40, but then they can't have too many little children themselves because they've already ruined those years chasing the almighty gold, the dollar, the shekel, and so they're going to wind up a bunch of old maids because nobody wants them. But the bottom line is that the real good-looking ones, we take them to Hollywood that we own, and we make them big.
I see. Well, Rabbi.
So what's your commentary on Mr. Finkelstein saying how women were finessed by their deception of feminism, just to chase the shekel, but they gave up their womanhood, by being mothers, wives, and, today a lot of men of all races and ethnicities, they have this term that they'll say the Western woman. So regardless of what her race is, they look at it like if she was, raised or reared at any of these Babylonian cultures, that she's no good. She may be good to hang out with, but she's not good to, have a family with and children with. So what's your commentary on that?
Yeah, that was a war tactic. It was a war tactic because it's I mean, how these women gonna raise the children, for the next generation to be again like their own culture and business norms and to where he will respect that. You know, where they go, how these kids gonna be raised now? Like, you know, if these women gonna be caught up doing the same thing, trying to compete with the men, then yeah, like then the nation is pretty much gonna be destroyed, and that's essentially what happened. And then you know, it went from the suffrage movement to, you know, of course, in the black culture, they ended up just removing the man out of the household, you know, at all in all. So yeah, that was definitely a war strategy by them, and it was designed, I think, to create the generations, you know, of stuff that we see now. That they had that plan back in like 1910 and stuff.
Right. Right. I agree.
Finkelstein, you know, I was talking to you about the U's and the K's that's on the food boxes and the food sources. And the thing that I want is that this is a private Jewish tax that people unsuspectedly are paying, aren't they?
Well, some know, some don't, but they better pay, because if they don't pay, they don't get the item. And the rabbis need to make some shekels too.
You know, I was talking to a person who journeyed over to Israel, and the United States has always been known as the land of milk and honey. They say over there, the United States is a land of milk and money. Would you like to relate to that?
Well, what's in a saying? What can I say? A lot of people here in America, they still keep screaming about these 55 guys that they say formed the country a couple of hundred years ago. But the bottom line is that the Jews formed the country. We came over here. 1492 was that terrible year that we got kicked out of Spain. And Columbus, who was a Jew, we found it out to take us over here. We were going to set up in Rio, and then we decided to go to New York, because New York has a little bit better weather, not so many mosquitoes. It was a little bit better. So we set up in New York.
And just for the viewership, real quick, Mr. Finkelstein he just told you what we just talked about how you had these original melanated Sephardim, Jacobites, Israelites, so-called Black Europeans of Eastern or from Western Europe, and they were being persecuted and kicked out. Someone was searching for religious freedom, and they would be, you know, seen as crypto Jews or even Marranos. So they would convert into some Protestant religion or Catholicism, but really they were practicing Judaism in secret. And even they were the original families behind the start of the Rosicrucian order, but how they came over to the Americas with Christopher Columbus. So, you know, as Crosswire was saying, they were around the descendants of Japheth, Ashkenazim, was dwelling in the tents of Shem for a very, very long time and learning from us, or at least some of our cousins from over across the Atlantic.
We make the money.
I was going to ask you, this war in Iraq, there's a lot of Jew money invested in this war, isn't there?
Well, we have all the ammunition companies, we have all the aircraft companies, all the gun manufacturers, all the supplies. We're making a lot of money, and George Bush is a good goyim. He borrows it right from the Federal Reserve, and then he has to tax the people to pay back the interest, because the most important part of a loan is the interest. You must pay back the interest. We're not concerned with the principal, but the interest has to keep going on. And we've done pretty well with Iraq so far. We've got about $300 billion or so. And but this war here is going to go on for another 30 years. As George said, we told him to keep it quiet and shut up and don't act like a big shot. But he kept talking. And so, but this war is going to go on for another 30 years. We're going to go into maybe 60 countries or so. We're going to be drafting all the goyim here soon. The men, the women, they don't want to sit home and have families anyway. They'd rather have a career. That's a nice, exciting thing for a woman to put on a green suit and go over there and shoot people and get shot at. Must be exciting to them. So we're making a lot of money.
You know, this is very interesting. Well, Rabbi Finkelstein, it's really good talking to you, and I'm sure the listening audience here on the Turner Radio Network is listening very intently, because a lot of things have been a little exposed, some more exposed than others. But, at least you're coming out and you're telling the truth. And, you state, we got $300 billion tied up in Iraq with interest. And what's 1,700 to 3,000 dead bodies compared to how much money you made?
Well, but you got to thin out the herd once in a while. Otherwise, the herds get too big. And if the herds get too big, they eat up all the resources. So you got to thin out the herd once in a while. We call it a theater of war, because it's amusing to us Jews to see our two biggest enemies, the white race and the Arab race, the seed of the woman. It's amusing to us to see them kill each other, and we make a lot of money off it. Believe me, I've had a lot of laughs at the synagogue with that.
Well, we got to break.
And also for the viewers, just to think about how politics, you can be watching the news on TV or anywhere, but you'll hear them use this terminology called theater of war. They'll say theater of war. So remember, a theater is where you watch a play or something that was scripted, where actors are on the stage. So in other words, this is something that's manufactured. But unfortunately, the casualties are real. The people that get drafted and the lives that are lost that are real. The money people got to pay at the gas station tomorrow, the day after that, is real. The increase in the food prices is real. The increase in insurance and all that is real. So to them, to these people, this war and chaos and confusion, it's all a theater to them. But to the average everyday person, it's crazy. It's chaos. Let's continue.
Here coming up in about a minute, I believe. And you're listening to the John 844 program of Pastor Bob, entitled The Lying Jews, on the Turner Radio Network. I'm James Wickstrom, a teacher of Yahweh, and as a guest on Pastor Bob's program tonight is Rabbi A.B. Finkelstein on the East Coast of the United States. We're going to be coming back to you after this break. Just hold your chair and hold your place. We'll be back in just one moment. I'd like to welcome you back for the second half of Pastor Bob's broadcast tonight on the Turner Radio Network on John 844. I'm James Wickstrom, a teacher of Yahweh, sitting in for Bob tonight. I wanted to thank him for covering for me last week a broadcast, The Lying Jews. Very interesting that I have one on here with no conscience, but he's coming up and at least telling the truth to what's going on in the country, is Rabbi A.B. Finkelstein from the East Coast of the United States. Rabbi Finkelstein, are you still there?
I am here, and remember, there's never been a Jew in the history of the world that ever told a lie. We always tell the truth.
Yes, I see. I know what your truth is. Your truth to you is a lie to us, but that's fine. I'd like to get into the situation that took place years ago. I know you're well aware of it. It was called the Bolshevik Revolution over in Christian Russia. It's been reported here on congressional documents in the United States, and it's in many places now, that actually it was Jews who financed the Bolsheviks' Jew Communist Revolution against the Tsar. Would you comment on that?
Well, it was really the Rothschild family that financed it, because they got all the shekels. Boy, let me tell you, they got the shekels. When the old man died in 1812, he owned half of all the known wealth in the world. The rest of us got to chop up the rest of it. But anyway, we started the Bolshevik Revolution there because you might as well start with taking over the biggest country in the world, which was Russia. And we had the help to murder the Tsar from his cousins, the Kaiser, and the King and Queen of England, and so they helped us, and they gave us all the inside information that we needed to take the country over. And but we drained that country pretty well. There's not a lot left, and so we look for greener pastures. And we've been doing real good here in America for a long time, but it's time to do something else, so we're going to build up China and India, and we'll just let America sink into the desert, because no one really cares about America anymore. It's You know, there's not a lot of shekels to be made anymore. You know, as they say, you can't get blood out of a stone, and we've got as much blood out of this stone as we're going to get.
You know, it's interesting because I'm glad you brought that up because this country is in great despair here. I'd like to know, you know, was very crafty on your kahila and the main sources of Jewish power, financial and political power, how they totally control most of the federal agencies in the District of Columbia.
Well, it's very simple. You know, the kahila, that's the inside for us rabbis. We know how to get the word out to every Jew in the world that goes to a synagogue within 45 minutes. All the other presses, the news media, the television, the radio, the magazines, we own all those anyway, so it trickles down. But by the time most of the masses get it, it's too late to make any decision. We already made the decision for them.
You know, it's interesting with trouble looming on the horizon in the United States. You know, there's a lot of white people like me, of European ancestry, who don't really know what's going on. And there's a large percentage of Jews in this country who really don't know what's going on either. They're going to be cannon fodder too, aren't they?
There's a few at the bottom that don't go to the synagogue and they don't know, but they know, they hear, you know, at parties we discuss it, you know, how we're going to wipe out the white race and wipe out the Arab race, actually let them wipe out each other and make a lot of money. That's pretty smart. You know, us Jews, we're pretty smart guys.
I know.
And eventually we'll get all the rest of the countries around the world, they'll wipe each other out, because us Jews, we're special. We're the chosen people, and we're the smartest people in the world, and we have always said down through the ages, we want a world of our own, and we're going to get it, and there's nothing any of the Goyim cattle are going to do to stop it. L'chaim.
So you see, it's very interesting that you should bring all of this up, because where do the blacks fit in? I know that you use them. They've been part of the Jewish Communist Party in the United States, a vast majority. What's going to be their end when this is all over?
Well, the Schwarzes, if the truth be known, came here with our father Lucifer 75,000 years ago when he lost that battle, only temporarily, though, in the heavens, because we're on a comeback. We're the comeback kids if there ever was one. But all the Schwarzes, what can you say? You know, they got a good time step. They dance good. You know, a couple of them can sing. They make some nice barbecue. And they're real good for selling drugs, too, because they all love the drugs. And we make a lot of money off of selling the drugs. You do know that we control all the drug world and have since Rothschild got the opium wars in China going. We've been controlling the drugs ever since that. We let a few in here and there to make some money. And they get arrested and they go off to jail for that. But we make the big money. We're the wholesalers. We're the wholesalers of everything in the world.
You know, it's very interesting. You should bring that.
So what's your commentary on Mr. Finkelstein's, you know, comments on so-called black people? Can you hear me? Hold on real quick. We may have had a problem with the brother Houdini. We're going to share the screen back in a minute. Let me see if he can hear me. Might have stepped away for a minute. Hold on, we're going to give him a chance to come back. Once again, right now, y'all, we're just doing a review of a video, looking into some of the psychology behind these international elite families, you know, how they use war, chaos, and confusion, because it's the greatest game to make some shekels, as Mr. Finkelstein has been telling us thus far. So y'all give me a second real quick, and I'm going to see what's going on with the brother Crosswire and get him back in on the live. All right, I'm back. Houdini, can you hear me? Seems like we're having some little audio issues. Y'all hold on. Give me a second real quick. If you're in the comment section and you can hear my voice right now, just give me some ones in the comment section. Seems like we're having a little bit of an audio issue. All right, so the people can hear me, but for some reason I can't hear him.
Oh, I'm here.
Oh, you here?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I was saying something. Yeah, you weren't even. Was you on mute or something?
I don't know. Maybe my arm must have hit it or something.
Yeah. I think you was on mute for a minute, but all right. So I'm about to go back to sharing the screen now. All right, sorry. He said he can hear you. All right, cool. Let's get back to it. All right, so yeah, so what I was asking the brother Crosswire, I just wanted to get his perspective on what Finkelstein, you know, was asked by the Christian pastor, you know, what's his take on so-called black people. And basically Finkelstein was saying that, you know, that they had been around for thousands and thousands of years with his forefather Lucifer, And you know, he made his little statement about us being good at dancing and other entertainment things, and of course the drug dealing. But what's your commentary on that?
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of, go back to what I was saying with the Caucasian thing. Like, you know, he's not really at competition with any other race or ethnicity or whatever. He feels like everybody outside of him is a part of, just cattle for his mission plan. So, you know, it always has been, some sort of respect between, like, blacks and Jews, honestly. I mean, because if you see in all forms of entertainment, they know they have to deal with blacks in that, because it's a lot of money they can make. So, it's that same relationship. But I think with blacks though, he knows he could deal with us in like various like industries, with the Caucasian. I mean, obviously it's just in maybe religion and in politics, things of that nature. But with blacks, I mean, it's entertainment. It's basically in the same stuff that that he gets pleasure and enjoyment from. So I think that it's a certain level of understanding and mutualism that he knows that he has to have with the black man.
All right. So what I'm gonna do right now is I'm gonna fast forward to a particular part towards the end to hear some of the comments that Mr. Finkelstein made, and we're gonna get the brother Houdini's perspective on it.
Set up because before, I mean, we steal 100 to 300,000 children.
Totally opposite sides of this planet, and both of us have two totally different wants and needs and desires against one another, and yet here we are sitting here tonight live on the Turner Radio Network, discoursing about people, discoursing about things, being honest and truthful, and in telling the truth to the masses. But the masses have a hard time believing anything.
Well, we've done a great brainwashing job on them over the centuries, and especially the last few hundred years. We've just brainwashed them completely. They believe anything we tell them. And, in the meantime, we have a lot of fun around Passover where we steal the children. And, I know you know because I've heard it on your show before. I mean, we steal 100 to 300,000 children a year just here in this country. And we drain the blood and we mix it with the Passover bread. And then we throw the bodies into the slaughterhouses that we own. And we grind up all the bodies in the sausage and the hamburger. McDonald's is one of our favorite outlets. And the people, they eat it for breakfast. They eat their children for lunch. And, us Jews, we gotta do what we do. The most important thing to remember between you, Pastor Wickstrom, and me, Rabbi A.B. Finkelstein of New York, that we both have two fathers, and so that's why we look at the world in two different ways.
And we know that there's a massive collision.
So before we get ready to end this video, what's your, final comment on his statement about, during one of their religious holidays or ceremonies, what he calls the Passover, how they kidnap these children, and traffic the children and drain the blood and mix it with the matzo balls, the dumplings, and, engage in these occult rituals.
Yeah, man, that's part of they how they create the Jewish magic and believe that that stuff allows them to keep control and to keep power on this planet. And that's what they do, like he said. Now I'll be honest, I mean, me personally, I feel like the McDonald's thing may be a little exaggerated, but nevertheless, that kind of ritual what they do with the children, we do know that does exist.
Right. So on the screen, to get ready to wrap it up, this image pretty much summarizes what Mr. Finkelstein was saying, that the people are just distracted by a major deception, which is this instrument on the screen called money, which is just a result of their Babylonian Talmudic magic. And the people put their focus and concentration on it, their real organic power that comes from their soul, their spirit, and it animates this false system and this false matrix that we in. And as you can see, you know, in this image, it's people of all ethnicities, all races, nationalities, religions, sizes and shapes, and they're all bowing down to this false god or this false entity. So before we wrap it up, what are your final, you know, remarks and statements on this entire interview, and what do you want to leave the people with?
I mean, hopefully, they can hear me because you were kind of like going in and out. But I mean, you know, it's just I mean, to be honest, when I first saw it, I wasn't really sure if it was even real. But nevertheless, we do know that, you know, that rather it's Finkelstein or a group of Jews, you know, that exist, that this is how they believe, you know, that their position is in this world. And maybe, you know, this is just an insight as to why, you know, all these problems exist out here. You know, why again, like certain things certain things are the way they are. So, you know, that's the way that it is, then, you know, then obviously, like I said, I just got to keep focused on doing what I have to do to build my own thing, because that's what he deems is something he will respect. You know, I wouldn't say that would be something he would want you to do, but nevertheless, it'll be respected. And I just have to continue to focus on that, because I mean, rather, again, like it was something that it was a real person that said that the beliefs are real, and we know that based on, you know, what we see every day. So that's kind of my take on the whole Finkelstein character and just the elite Jewish cabal system at whole.
Right, yeah, and I tend to agree. But yeah, so that's, you know, that's the video. We just wanted to go into war, chaos, and confusion. You know, the greatest game that makes some shekels, and how in the Scorperotika book you're going to read and learn about these Indian wars. You're going to learn about the two rival sides, as a lot of the, you know, cat's paw tactics and things that were done to steal resources, and steal really the minds of a people in general. But we appreciate everybody tuning in. The instructions on the screen once again. To purchase the book Scorperotika, you can hit me up in the email at redstickmirage7 redstickmirage7@gmail.com, excuse me. And once I have your name and mailing information, you know, I'll be able to ship the book out. And it's a dark romance dealing with America's history of war, sex, shekels, death. But we appreciate you tuning in. Stay tuned for the next live stream, and we out.